Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, as we are live here today for another edition of the NASCAR Fantasy Podcast. We're going to go through everything that happened in the Richmond race yesterday for the Cup Series and go through Stage 1, Stage 2, Stage 3. We'll review the results of each of the stages as well as the finishing results to the end of the race, and we'll see how the point standings stack up as well. And at the very end, we'll do our own power rankings. As if you're new to the podcast or new to the channel, we do a power rankings episode or power rankings at the end of every post-race episode for about the last 15 minutes. So we'll talk about that as well, see how all that might have changed up. We got 6 people watching already here today. Take a look at the chat. Trevor Grimes, Tyler Burbeck, welcome to the stream here early on. And yes, this should be a very, very fun one. It was a very fun race yesterday as well. We'll start things off with stage number 1. It all started when Martin Truex Jr. led the field to the green after winning at Martinsville on a short track the week before that. He led every lap up until the competition yellow. Pretty much nobody could touch him in those first 30 laps. Following the pit stops of the race, we instantly saw Denny Hamlin's crew have a very fast stop, sub 12 seconds. He had 3 pit stops throughout the course of the day that were sub 12 second stops. So Denny Hamlin's crew was definitely on it. Arguably one of the best pit crews all season leading up to it. I think yesterday was a very good opportunity and a very good showcase of that. And he definitely dominated once he won the race off the pit road there. Truex was never able to get back to him to the end of stage 1, so Denny Hamlin goes on to win the first stage of the race. Now, with that being said, Truex was within about a half a second or so, but those were definitely the top 2 cars at the very, very start of the race. So your stage 1 results, again, already mentioned that Denny Hamlin had won stage number 1, getting his 4th stage win of the year up to that point. Martin Truex Jr. finished 2nd, Joey Logano 3rd, William Byron 4th. Ryan Blaney surprised in stage 1. He was one of the don't-haves for the fantasy list. He actually looked really good in the first stage. In the second stage, and the final stage where we had longer green flag runs, his car really faded on the long run. He said after about 20 laps, it turned into just a terrible car to drive. And I think with the competition yellow kind of splitting stage 1 in half and the fact that it was the shortest stage of the race, it was only 80 laps in the first stage, that definitely helped Blaney, so he was able to get 5th. Christopher Bell 6th, Alex Bowman 7th, Austin Dillon 8th, Brad Keselowski 9th, and Kevin Harvick rounded out the top 10 in stage number 1. Into stage number 2, we went green flag through about half of the second stage of the race before Ryan Newman had spun in a 3-wide battle. It looked like there was a little bit of contact. Well, there was a little bit of contact with the car that was in the middle lane right there. Newman goes spinning, backs it into the outside wall. That pretty much held him a couple laps down the rest of the day. And not only it held him back, but it held a lot of the field back. They were in the middle of green flag pit stops when that caution had happened, leaving just 6 cars on the lead lap. Now, a lot of the other drivers were able to get back on the lead lap by taking the wave around, but we saw all day long that tires were so important. At the end of just a 40-lap run, that cars were about 2 seconds a lap faster, so those guys were going to have a tough time trying to stay on the lead lap to the end of the stage, and most of them actually ended up going a lap down before the end of stage 2. Some of those drivers include Ryan Blaney and Brad Keselowski, which their teams both tried strategies that failed miserably. They ended up pitting under the caution. So we kind of expected that to happen. They would pit under the caution, and then they would decide to stay out to the end of the stage, only pitting once on the stage when everybody else pitted twice. I mentioned that the guys were 2 seconds of a lap faster, and we knew that even going into that strategy call, so I'm not sure why they decided to do it. Keselowski had a much faster car than Blaney. We mentioned Blaney's struggles a little bit ago, that pretty much in stage 2 on, he struggled on the long run anyway, so he definitely was way, way off. And Keselowski looked like he was going to be able to at least hold on to the lead lap positioning, but even that ended up failing with the heavier lap traffic at the end of the stage. He got passed with a couple laps to go. Denny Hamlin goes on to win stage number 2, sweeping the stages at Richmond yesterday, now giving him 5 stage wins on the season. And into the final stage we went. Green flag pit stops about halfway through the final, well, about a third of the way through the final stage. Again, they were going to try that 2-stop strategy that most of the teams ended up pulling off, and the strategy that ultimately was going to win somebody the race, as we saw in stage 2, was going to happen again in stage 3. Martin Truex Jr. ended up speeding on pit road during that first set of green flag pit stops in the final stage. That put him behind the 8 ball. He was able to stay on the lead lap, though, in case something happened later in the race. It actually came out of the pits right in front of Denny Hamlin, was actually able to start pulling away from him. So Truex had the speed all day long if he could just get the track position. Again, Hamlin's pit crew was so fast, he was never able to really jump back in front of him. And Truex had the second or third fastest car all day long, that is for sure. Kyle Busch ended up also speeding on pit road during the final pit stop of the race. That ended up putting him a lap down. So unlike Truex during the first green flag stop of the final stage, Kyle Busch during the second green flag stop was not able to stay on the lead lap. Tough break for him. He was running in third place, about 5 seconds, 4.5, 5 seconds off the lead before those pit stops started. It was looking like he was going to have a great top 5 run. One of his better runs of the season. Ended up not being the case there. With 20 laps to go in the race, Kevin Harvick ends up blowing a right rear tire. Not sure if contact had led to it blowing. Again, we were about halfway through that final run of the race, so really only had maybe 25, 30 laps at the most on his tires, which is a lot for Richmond because it does wear the tires out quite a bit, as we saw throughout the course of the day. And it was very strange that it was a right rear. It wasn't like it was a right front. There had been issues with drivers maybe spinning the rear tires too much, trying to get back on the gas. I know Denny Hamlin was radioing into his team way back in stage 1 that he might have been doing it too much. So maybe that caused the right rear tire to go down on Harvick's car, regardless of the fact. It was a definite tough break there for Kevin Harvick. He had a top 10 day going. He was running in 7th at the time. I know he wasn't competing for the win, but again, it was still a pretty good day up until that point. He ended up staying in the race, but he did drop 2 laps down. I believe he finished outside the top 15. Denny Hamlin ends up winning the race off of pit road after that caution. Again, only 2 cautions for incident yesterday. That was the final one. Hamlin wins the race off of pit road, barely beating Truex. Again, Hamlin's pit crew, barely beating Joey Logano because Joey Logano and Hamlin were actually battling very, very hard with each other for about 10 laps before Harvick had spun. It was going to be interesting to see which one of those two would win. Hamlin did jump him in pit road, barely beat him off of pit road. 0.3 of a second faster of a stop, and then I guess Denny Hamlin's drive time on pit road was about a half a second quicker than Joey Logano's as well. 0.8 of a second gain, just enough to swing Hamlin out ahead of Logano on pit road by just a nose in that race off pit road. So Hamlin decided to restart in the outside groove, even though the inside was working for him earlier in the day. I thought that was kind of interesting, and Joey Logano ended up on the inside. Logano kind of spun the tires a little bit, or at least just did not take off as well. We saw him spin the tires on the initial start way back in lap 1 in the race, so that could have been a very big issue for him there. It allowed Alex Bowman to get to the inside, quickly get around Joey Logano, and then got to the inside of Denny Hamlin with about 11 laps to go in the race and was battling side by side for about a lap and a half with him before finally pulling clear up turn 4 with 10 laps to go, coming to 9 to go, and Bowman went on to pull away. Lap traffic came into play in the last couple laps of the race. A lot of guys took the wave around again to get back on the lead lap during that last the last caution of the race today. So there were a lot of guys on older tires that were already getting lapped after just a 12-lap green flag run to the end of the race. They were running 2x2, nearly 3 wide through there, and you thought that was going to cost Bowman the win. Hamlin definitely closed the gap in the last 2 laps alone because of that, but he could not pull within 2 car lengths. And Alex Bowman goes on to win his first race of the year yesterday at Richmond. Definitely shocking. He had a fast car throughout the course of the day. He definitely had a top 5 car for sure. But yes, Alex Bowman indeed nailed that restart. Cap24, welcome to the stream. Jackson Thomas, welcome as well. But yeah, definitely nailed the restart at the end of the race. That was awesome. Honestly, the battle between Hamlin and Logano late was intense. It was definitely going to be a 50% shot of which one of those two were going to win. It was tough to see the caution come out to disrupt that kind of an ending to the race, but it brought Bowman into the picture of trying to get that track position, which he had not gotten all day long. He actually came back from a penalty at the beginning of the final stage, had to restart at the rear of the field, so with that Harvick spin being the only caution of the final stage, he was just never able to really get back up there with Logano and Hamlin until those final 12 laps on that last restart. So yes, congratulations to Alex Bowman. Getting his first win of the season. Now 8 different winners in the first 9 races of the year. Truex the only multi-time winner this season. And Alex Bowman came into yesterday's race below the cutoff line by 5 points on Kurt Busch. He jumps into the playoff picture. He did jump inside the top 16 anyway as well after the win yesterday and a great points day. Again, he was in the top 7 at least for both stages. Just a great day overall for Alex Bowman and that team. We'll take a look at the top 10 for the finishing order of yesterday's race, with Bowman finishing P1. Denny Hamlin finishes second, Now 8 top 5s in the first 9 races of the season, but no wins to show for Denny Hamlin. Joey Logano ends up 3rd after that last restart. Great day for Christopher Bell. It looked like he might have been able to steal a win late when those guys were battling side by side for the lead. They were actually 3 wide when Bowman got to the inside of Denny Hamlin there with about 11 laps to go. They were 3 wide for second place as well. It looked like Logano was going to lose even more spots, and a guy like Christopher Bell or Eric Almirola might have been able to steal the win. There was a point also when Bowman and Hamlin were side by side, and they about made contact as Bowman overdrove the corner. And if they would have gotten into each other there, I think Eric Almirola, who was 3 wide on the inside for second, or third, I guess, at the time, would have been able to pounce to the lead. That was insane. That would have been an even bigger upset than Alex Bowman, because Bowman has shown speed this year, unlike Eric Almirola and that Stewart-Haas racing team. But anyway, Christopher Bell 4th. Martin Truex Jr. did get back into the top 5 after that speeding penalty. Eric Almirola 6th, William Byron 7th. Kyle Busch came back to finish 8th, Matt DiBenedetto 9th, and Austin Dillon rounds out the top 10. Another note, I guess, that we have to go through were the must-haves from yesterday's race, the don't-haves, and the sleeper picks, and see how all of those guys ended up playing out. Joey Logano fan, welcome to the stream. Austin Dillon having a better season than Michael McDowell. Yeah, average finish-wise, yes, he's still not locked into the playoffs, and a guy like Bowman winning yesterday behind Austin Dillon at points, that does hurt him a little bit versus McDowell having the win he's secured in. But we'll get to the power rankings in a little bit, and we'll talk about that stuff a tad bit more. But I saw your comments, so I kind of wanted to quickly say something about it. Joey Logano fan, welcome to the stream as well. So going through the finishing order, seeing how the guys stacked up with stage points and everything else, and we'll go through the list of the don't-haves and everybody else that we had mentioned in the pre-race and my expectations and predictions for him. And I gotta say, I nailed everything. I mean everything spot on, from the don't-haves, the must-haves, and how good all those guys did, and then the sleeper picks and how good they did. I guess one you could argue wasn't as great with the sleeper pick, but we had 8 drivers we had mentioned that I had expectations for in yesterday's race, and they all prevailed. So let me pull that list back up here on my phone real quick. Get the finishing order back up as well. Okay, so first we're going to start off with the don't-haves for yesterday. Let's see how they all piled in. First off, Kurt Busch. He was the first driver we had on the don't-haves list yesterday. Kurt Busch ran well outside the top 10 all day. He did get in there with a 13th place finish. No stage points for Kurt Busch at all yesterday. So Kurt Busch was a don't-have on the list. I said not to put him in your fantasy lineups. He definitely underperformed as I thought he would do, so I was right on that one. Ryan Blaney looked like he was going to exceed my expectations by far, running inside the top 5 like mentioned in stage 1, but he really fell back. He was back as far as 18th in the field at one point in time. Did work his way back up to 11th, so not a completely terrible day for Blaney, especially considering the fact this is his worst track statistically. His best finish going into Richmond was 17th. He finished 11th, so a good run for Blaney. I'm happy as a Blaney fan, but I did say don't put him in your fantasy lineups for yesterday's race, and he finished outside the top 10 with only 5 stage points, so I'd say that I was right on that pick as well. And the third driver for the don't-haves was Chase Briscoe. Not so much that Stewart-Haas is struggling this year, a little bit because Stewart-Haas was struggling this year, and then also a large part of it that Briscoe did not finish inside the top 10 in either Richmond race last season in the Xfinity Series. He ran outside the top 20 again all day today, finished 22nd. So the 3 don't-haves all finished outside the top 10, pretty much ran there for most of the day, if not worse. And I have to say I nailed all 3 of those perfectly. For the sleeper picks, I had Austin Dillon as one of them. Austin Dillon ran inside the top 10 all day. Ended up with a 10th place run. Scored stage points in the back half of the top 10 in both stage 1 and stage 2. So a good point stay there for Austin Dillon. And one of the sleeper picks, I said he was going to get a top 10. He snuck in there late. He was there pretty much all day. So he ended up getting the top 10 solidly. Another one of the sleeper picks, and this is the only pick that's questionable that didn't perform well. That was Ryan Newman. He got in that crash, ended up giving him more damage. He was running about 18th to 20th at the time, so he wasn't running too well. I said he could get a top 10, but I expected him to get top 15, especially at the speed that Roush Fenway was showing this year, and the fact he had 2 top 10s at Richmond. in 2 of the last 3 races that they ran there, but it just wasn't enough for Ryan Newman, and he ended up finishing 30th. So that's the only one of the 8 drivers I had expectations for, whether they were good or bad, and they did not live up to those expectations, so Newman did not have a good day. And usually I go back further in data than just the last 3 races for that reason, but we only went back 3 races for Austin Dillon, so I guess it kind of helped and it kind of hurt. Keegan had Custer as a don't have. Yeah, he definitely didn't perform well either. He finished 1 spot worse than Briscoe. And Harvick crashed, and he finished 24th, by the way. So, man, Stewart-Haas Racing, 22nd, 23rd, 24th. At least Almirola had a good day. He finished in the top 10. He was progressively getting better as the day went on, it seemed like, as well. Spindrick wrecked Newman from what I heard. Yeah, it was 3 wide. It wasn't intentional. It was a rookie mistake. It really was. And there's not a lot of room to go 3 wide on a short track, too. I know Richmond is probably the widest of the 3 short tracks we have in the Cup Series, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that it's easy to run 3 wide there. You just see it more often than what you would Martinsville or Bristol. So, didn't wreck him intentionally, and it was just a rookie mistake. He just couldn't keep control of his car, essentially. He just got a little too tight when they were 3 wide, moved up the track just a tiny bit in corner entry, maybe pushed a little too hard, trying to outrun those guys when he's 3 wide in the middle and trying to get out of the middle, and he ended up clipping Newman's left rear and turned Newman into the outside wall. Almirola as a don't have, and he proved me there. Yeah, Almirola definitely proved and exceeded expectations. That's actually Almirola's 3rd top 10 at Richmond in the last 5 races, so Richmond is one of his better racetracks since moving to Stewart-Haas Racing, to put that out there. So I guess not completely surprising that he finished in the top 10, considering that is one of his better racetracks. I think it's just exceeded everybody's expectations, knowing how bad of a season he had. And again, we'll look at the points here in a little bit. So that was all for the sleepers and the don't-haves, the 3 must-haves I had for the fantasy team. I had Kyle Busch. I said that he would get a top 10. He ended up finishing 8th, and I said he could contend for a top 5. He was in 3rd up until he had that pit road speeding penalty. It wasn't a speeding penalty. It was at his... let me re-clarify that. It wasn't a speeding penalty. His right side tires were on the orange cone. The rule is that you have to have all 4 tires underneath the orange cone when trying to enter the pit road. He was coming in a little hot, trying to back it down, slid the car, and that's why the right side tires didn't make it inside the orange cone. But Kyle Busch still ran in the top 10 all day, scored a lot of stage points, finished 8th, had a chance at a top 5. He was a must-have, and I was definitely right on that pick. Another pick I was right on was Martin Truex Jr. I said he would get a top 5 and he would contend for the win. That was very well the case. He had a top 3 car all day. Had the pit road speeding penalty. It looked like he wasn't going to get a top 5, but with that late race restart, he was able to get back inside the top 5 with 5th. So I nailed that right on the head right there. He was my pick to win yesterday's race. Obviously didn't win the race, but still had a very good run nonetheless. And then the last of the must-haves, let me see here. Oh, okay, so I guess I was wrong on this guy, too. Last of the must-haves was Brad Keselowski, and he had a top 10 car, scored stage points in Stage 1. Stage 2, he did not score stage points, got trapped a lap down, and never got back on the lead lap the rest of the race. Actually, he might have finished on the lead lap because he took the wave around there at the very end during that last caution for Harvick, but he was 14th and he was on old tires then, so it didn't matter. It wasn't like he was going to get back inside the top 10 with those old tires and restarting at the rear of the field. So yeah, Brad Keselowski, if it wasn't for that pit stop, I think he really would have finished in the top 10. I think a little concern for Brad Keselowski. He doesn't have a win this season. His Penske teammates of Logano and Blaney have been running considerably better than him. And Keselowski has now ran outside the top 10 in 4 straight races. He has not finished in the top 10. Going back to Phoenix was the last time he actually finished inside the top 10 this year. So definitely concerning for Brad Keselowski, maybe some Brad Keselowski fans out there. We'll see how he stacks up in the points. So a quick little review of the point standings now. We've pretty much covered everything we needed to from the race yesterday. I guess down in the comment section below, what did you guys think of the race overall? I thought it was a good race. It was an average race, but then the last 30 to 40 laps are so good between Hamlin and Logano's battle, the way that they were able to battle as long as they were. Hamlin just wasn't quite able to get around Logano, and then the caution came out, and Bowman stole the show, and that was really cool to see him win. I was kind of rooting for him once he got to the lead. I was like, okay, run away with this thing. I'm on that bandwagon of wanting to see more than 16 different winners, so that definitely helps that out. I still don't think that we're going to get there. If we get an upset winner at Talladega, like a real upset winner, kind of like McDowell won, then I'd say we are going to get more than 16. That's going to be the make or break race for me. I'm still putting my foot down on that. if we see a guy right around the bubble win again next week at Talladega, if not below the cutoff line, like Eric Almirola, who has had success there in the past, and he's not had a particularly great season, but he is coming off his first top 10. That could be good. 6.4 out of 10 for me. Yeah, I'd say it was probably I'd say 7.5 for me, honestly, because I thought the race pace flew by with only having 2 cautions, and that's the nice thing, too, with having, unless it's a 500-mile race, then it still kind of lags on, but not having a lot of cautions does quicken the race up, and I thought the first 2 stages really flew by, just by the race pace alone, and the final stage was the more entertaining of the 3 stages by far, just with the finish of the race in the last 40 laps alone, and then the drama with the pit road speeding penalty by Truex and Kyle Busch, so it took 2 contenders for the win out right there. So definitely there was a lot of wrenches thrown there in the strategy. And watching Blaney try to come back and get into 11th as a Blaney fan. So, yeah, I thought it was... I would have given it a 7.5 out of 10 if I had to rate it. Jimmy's NASCAR skills came handy yesterday, avoiding the big wreck. Oh, yeah, I did. I watched the highlights of that IndyCar race today. I did not watch any of it yesterday. Again, I am such a diehard NASCAR fan that I have to watch every lap of every Cup race. So I did not get to watch any of the IndyCar race live yesterday. I don't know what time it even started, really. So maybe I could have watched like an hour before the start of the Cup race. I really don't know. But... I will be watching more IndyCar this year. I usually watch a handful of races a year. Either, like, if NASCAR races a Saturday night, I'll usually catch the Sunday Indy race the next day because I do like watching racing. That's why I watched the F1 season opener this year, is because Dirt Bristol got rained out till Monday, and I was like, well, I'm going to watch racing regardless today, so it looks like F1 it is. So I was kind of stuck with it that day, but yeah, that's pretty much the same thing. IndyCar race for me yesterday was 9 out of 10, Cup being 4 out of 10. I think 4 out of 10 is a little low. Again, there doesn't have to be wrecks, and there was good racing throughout the middle of the pack, just maybe not as much for the lead, but I thought it was a little bit above average race yesterday. Again, 7.5 is what I'd rate it. But outside of the highlight, see, that's another thing. The highlights condense, like that NBC and Fox Sports and even NASCAR, for instance, on their YouTube channel, they put in, it's like 10 to 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes of a 2.5, 3 hour race. It can't fit every major detail into it, so that's why you usually see just a bunch of wrecks. And I was kind of furious, though. Well, not furious. I don't get mad much, but I did rewatch the highlights yesterday from the race on both Fox and NASCAR's YouTube channels. Watched the highlights of it, and they did not show a lick of that battle between Hamlin and Logano. They showed the pit road speeding penalties and pit road pit stops with like 55 laps to go, and then immediately flipped it to the caution that Harvick brought out late in the race. I was like, that was the best part of the race, I thought, was Hamlin and Logano battling with less than 30 laps to go. For about 10 laps, they were just nose to tail. Hamlin would get inside of him. They'd run side by side for about a lap or two. He couldn't complete the pass. Would try it again. I thought that was the best part of the race. They didn't even show it on the highlights. That was a bummer. Inside Uranus, welcome to the stream. It just sucks for people that don't watch the race. And obviously with it being on cable, they're more likely. But if it's on FS1, maybe you can't watch the race when it's on FS1. You have to watch the highlights, immediately to find out or to know what the race was like the day of the race. And that's all they give you, is 15 minutes, and they don't even show the best part. So that kind of stinks. So 2 Alexes won yesterday. Yeah, Alex Palou won yesterday. First race of Chip Ganassi. Yeah, congratulations to him as well. Again, I watched the highlights of it. It seemed like it was a good race. Yeah, Barber. Inside Uranus, welcome to the stream. All right, that's enough of covering the race from yesterday. That takes us to about the halfway mark. That's what I like to do usually. Now we'll get into the point standings. We'll see where everybody's at in the point standings. Kind of my take on that real quick, and then we'll get into the power rankings for the final 10 to 15 minutes of this episode. So, looking at the overall standings right now, we'll take a look at the playoff standings first. So the drivers locked in on wins this year. Martin Truex Jr. with 2, Logano has 1, Blaney's got 1, Larson has 1, Byron has a win, Christopher Bell has a win, Alex Bowman's got a win, and Michael McDowell has a win. So again, 8 different winners in the first 9 races, and Denny Hamlin leads the regular season championship by even more points than what he led going into yesterday. He gained 7 on Truex, and Denny Hamlin has an 81-point lead in the standings. That is almost a race and a half worth of points. It's a race and a third of points ahead of second place. And remember, even if we do, say, get 16 different winners this season, if we do end up getting that, and say Denny Hamlin isn't one of those drivers, Hamlin would still be locked into the playoffs because the regular season champion is automatically locked in. And there's 15 playoff points to go with that, too. So even if Hamlin wins one or two races, doesn't have a lot of playoff points, that regular season championship can go a long way. And there's still a long ways to go before the playoffs start. So although 81 points is a big lead now, I mean, all it takes is a DNF at Talladega next week, which can very well happen. He gets caught in the big one there, and his lead's cut in half. It's down to 40. And then let's say he just has a bad run at Dover or something like that coming up where he just runs outside the top 15 or, all day, and all of a sudden that points lead is completely gone. So I'm not going to say that by any means somebody could catch him within the next 3 to 4 races, but no matter what happens at Talladega, he's still going to be the points leader. Fantasy was intense yesterday. Yeah, it looked like everybody was scoring a lot of points there. I was kind of keeping an eye on it throughout the course of the race. All Hamlin now. And 5 stage wins this season. So he's got 5 playoff points for the stage wins, 15 if the regular season championship ended today. So even though he's got no wins, he would still have 20 playoff points going into the playoffs without any wins. So just imagine if he does win like 4 races, that's only going to double his total to 40. And I think, he had like 47 or 49 at the end of the regular season last year with 7 wins. I mean, if he gets 3 or 4, he's going to have almost as many playoff points. Still a lot of stages he could still win this year, too. So, yeah, Denny Hamlin's definitely had a really good run so far. So, we talked about the drivers that are locked into the playoffs. Drivers without a win outside of Denny Hamlin that are inside the top 10 looking pretty good on points. Chase Elliott's 7th. Kevin Harvick's 8th. Brad Keselowski is falling back. He's back to 9th, but it's Brad Keselowski. He's a former champ. I don't see why he can't point his way into the playoffs, but he has finished outside the top 10 in 4 straight races now, so that is definitely concerning. And then Christopher Bell rounds out the top 10 in points. Drivers that are outside the top 10 in points that are barely inside the cutoff line include Kyle Busch. He's 11th. Austin Dillon is 12th. I guess Kyle Busch would technically be 12th in the playoff standings because McDowell is below, and Bowman's below him in points. So actually Kyle Busch is 13th in the playoff grid. Austin Dillon falls back to 14th because Bowman and McDowell are behind those guys in points. Ricky Stenhouse, he's sitting 15th on the playoff grid, still inside the top 16 by 18 points. And then Kurt Busch still has the last spot on points by 10 over Chris Buescher, who is now the first driver out. And McDowell has fallen outside the top 16 in points. He is back to 17th. But as long as he's in the top 30 is when we'll account for. Guys that are on the move, Matt DiBenedetto is 18th in points, ladies and gentlemen. Remember just 4 races ago when Matt DiBenedetto was back there at Almirola, 28th, 29th in points? Now he's up to 18th after 4 races. Just got his first top 10 of the year, but he's been scoring some stage points the last couple of weeks leading up to this week. This was definitely his best run of the year. He's a good short track racer, proved it today. Even Martinsville, he finished 12th, I believe. Phoenix, he had a good run, finished 11th or 12th. So, 4 races ago, Matt DiBenedetto was 27th, 28th, 29th in points. Now he's 18th, and he's 39 points behind Kurt Busch right now for the last spot in points. Kurt Busch is going to be a tough guy to outpoint, but Stenhouse is still inside the top 15, so maybe Stenhouse falls out and he can catch him. DiBenedetto, all of a sudden, is on pace where he could still point his way in. Very well possible. Austin Dillon's doing well at this point. Yeah, especially this far into the season, for sure. Almirola's on the move. I wouldn't say that yet, no. Almirola only moved up 1 spot in points. The only guy he passed was his teammate Chris Buescher. So, Almirola's still 27th. That just goes to show how far behind Almirola is. DiBenedetto started to get it going the last couple weeks. Almirola has not. That's been the difference between those 2 drivers. Cole Custer's 25th still. Chastain 24th. Suarez still sits in 23rd. Bubba Wallace is still in the top 20. He's 20th in points. That's the weird thing with Bubba Wallace. It's like, yes, he hasn't gotten a top 10, but it seems like he runs 10th to 15th most of the race, and then he fades in that final stage. Yesterday was not the case. He was running pretty much 20th or worse all day yesterday, but excluding yesterday's race, it's pretty much been Bubba Wallace's season. Or he will be running inside the top 10 all day, and then like Phoenix, they just have the terrible pit strategy, or bad luck at Martinsville as well late in that race. So, something they just can't close it out, but they're within striking distance still. Ryan Newman's in the top 20 points. He's 19th right now still as well. He's actually only 1 point behind DiBenedetto, so he's 40 points behind Kurt Busch. But I think Kurt Busch is going to be all right. He's got 2 top 10s this year, 1 top 5. That race at Atlanta really hurt Kurt Busch because I think he could have had a shot to win that race that day. He got taken out early in Stage 2, the start of Stage 2. Remember when Hamlin got in the back of him, and we know Larson dominated the day, but Blaney ended up with a win. I think Kurt Busch could have been right there with Blaney. We'll never know. So maybe he could have gotten the win that day. Who knows? Wonder it's Bubba's crew chief. I've heard rumors that it could be that. I mean, it's possible. I think it's a combination of both. It's a combination of 3 things. One, it's a combination, first off, it's just a new team. It's a new team. They're going to go through some growing pains. I expected that in the first half of the season. I didn't expect Bubba Wallace to get a win this year anyway. People were expecting him to compete for wins. And I think by the end of the year, it's possible still because we got a long ways to go. We're only a quarter of the way through the season. We still got 24 races left. More than that. We got 27 races left. So it's still a long ways to go. He's good on the super speedways. He was fast at Daytona, so I expect that car to be fast at Talladega. If he's not fast at Talladega tomorrow, and he's running mid-pack the whole race, that might be a little cause for concern because he ran well in the super speedway earlier this year. There's no reason why he shouldn't run well at Talladega. If he gets caught up in the big one, and it's nothing of his fault, then that's one thing. But, if he's just outside the top 10 all day and just doesn't do anything, then it's, okay. Back to the drawing board. Something's got to change fast if they're looking to make the playoffs this year. And that's another thing. They're talking about expanding. Throw all the talk about, trying to expand out of the way right now. You have to focus on getting that 23 car in the playoffs this year before you worry about expanding. If you can't make the playoffs with a single car team, they're only going to struggle even worse next year as a 2 or a 3 car team. I'm telling you that right now. Because if they can't put all their eggs in the basket, and it's still early in the season, so again, they could they could turn it on when we get to the Pocono doubleheader, for instance. They could turn it on with their intermediate program, and they seem to be all right on speed at the short tracks outside of yesterday at Richmond, but Richmond's never been one of Bubba Wallace's tracks anyway. Seems like the 2 short tracks he runs well at are Martinsville and Bristol. But, yeah. I guess that's all about the point standings. We'll go into the power rankings now for the final 15 minutes or so of this video. Yes, that's right, the power rankings. Heard they added a truck race for Talladega on Thursday. What? Where'd you hear that from? Hang on, Tyler. I do not know. Yeah, the trucks are not racing this weekend. Trucks are off at Talladega. Don't know what that's about. No, I don't know what you're talking about. I have not heard anything about that yet. And I'm going to the race next weekend. Going to the Xfinity and the Cup race at Talladega. But no, trucks are off. They don't race till Kansas the week after. Then they race at Darlington, Circuit of the Americas. So they got a lot of races coming up in the next month. They race 4 times in May before having a couple weeks off in between Charlotte and Texas. But yeah, trucks are not racing next week. On to the power rankings. We'll review where everybody was at last week in the power rankings as we go through the list this week. We start off with number 10. We work our way to number 1. This is simply based off of stats in the eye test. And I'll go over 10th place, 9th, and 8th before I talk to you guys about the drivers that are outside looking in. So the drivers that missed. At number 10, originally at number 10 was Michael McDowell last week. He has now fallen outside the top 10 of the power rankings. So he held on there for a while, but I think now it's time to move him out. He's outside the top 16 in the regular season standings right now. Still well inside the top 30. Again, he'll get there. And he hasn't had a top 10 since the 3rd race of the year, so it's not 6 races without a top 10. If he could have just kept that momentum going, click away top 10 every now and then, he'd still be inside the top 10. But we have 8 different winners right now, and he's the only driver with a win that's not inside the top 10 in the power rankings. So at number 10, we've got Alex Bowman. How could you not move Bowman into the top 10 after that impressive run yesterday? Bowman does have 4 top 10s on the season. I know he's 13th in the regular season point standings, but Alex Bowman has shown speed this year. It seems like the races he could have finished in the top 10 in that he didn't. Martinsville, he had a fast car, got caught up in that big wreck. He had a fast car at Dirt Bristol, got caught up in a wreck there. So Bowman definitely looks like well, he is in the playoffs now, I guess, technically, as long as we don't get more than 16 winners and something catastrophic happens. But Bowman's pretty much locked into the playoffs now. So congratulations to him yesterday. And now he's in the top 10 in the power rankings as well. At number 9, we have his teammate, one of his teammates at least, Chase Elliott. Elliott was on the power rankings list last week at number 8. He drops back one spot to number 9. He was outside the top 10 all day yesterday. He's still without a win. I kept him in the power rankings simply because he's 7th in the regular season point standings. He's got the same amount of top 10s as Bowman, but he does have one more top 5 than Alex. Alex has not won a stage this year. Chase Elliott has. There are road courses on the schedule. I don't think it's a cause for concern yet for Chase Elliott, but I said it a couple weeks ago that Elliott is the last driver at Hendrick Motorsports stable this year, just off the eye test on speed. I know Bowman's behind him in points, but he's had a lot worse luck than Elliott, and Richmond was a pretty prime example of that yesterday where Elliott just wasn't fast. I mean, not at all. And Larson wasn't fast either, but Larson's been noticeably fast on the intermediates, and he has a win this year too, so there's no concern with Larson. There is concern with Elliott. There are road courses, so he will get a couple wins, I'm sure, before the playoffs start. But, I mean, we still have 3 more weeks yet before next road course race, so he's going to have to do something between now and then to get some momentum going. The last thing you want to do is go into the playoffs with having 2 wins in the regular season, both on road courses, because there's only one race in the playoffs that's a road course, and that's in the second round of the Charlotte Roval. If he doesn't start racking those playoff points up when you have all these other drivers with wins, that could cost him come the time and his chance to repeat as a champion, which were my preseason predictions for Elliott. I had him repeating as a champion. He's definitely looking like he's going into that championship hangover earlier this season, which, if 7th in points is your championship hangover, I guess it's still pretty good, but he's definitely not looking like a championship contender through the first quarter of the season. Number 8 on the power rankings list. Sorry for the long pause. Building the suspense up. 8th on the power rankings list is Kevin Harvick. Harvick drops back yet another spot in our power rankings. He's 8th in the point standings. I have him one spot ahead of Elliott, despite the fact Elliott is ahead of Harvick in the standings by 1, because Harvick does have 6 top 10s this year, 2 top 5s, and he ran better than Chase Elliott all day yesterday. Kevin Harvick was in the top 10 all day. I know it's not the same Kevin Harvick, but he was noticeably better than Elliott all day, and could have had a 7 top 10, didn't. So the stats show he still has 6. He's only got 1 less top 5 than Chase also. Chase has been closer to winning races this year, but he's just nowhere near as consistent as what Harvick has been, at least. Austin Dillon is almost a full race ahead of Kurt Busch in points. Yeah, just about. It'll be interesting to see, though, if he keeps that pace up. I think he can. This far into the season, quarter of the way, I think he can hold his own. He's just got that top 10 yesterday. So the drivers that are outside looking in right now on my bubble, again, Kevin Harvick has 8, Chase Elliott 9, Alex Bowman 10. We talked about McDowell being bumped off the list. Kyle Busch, Austin Dillon are those 2 drivers that were just outside the list as well. I would have put them ahead of McDowell, honestly, and I would have had... quite honestly, I would have had Kyle Busch at 11 and Austin Dillon 12, which is exactly where they're at in the points standings right now. Austin Dillon's got 3 top 10s, so he doesn't quite have as many top 10s as Bowman, and he doesn't have a win. He doesn't have as many top 10s as Harvick, who has 3 more than him, and Chase Elliott is 5 spots ahead of him in points with 1 more top 10 and 2 more top 5. So it was kind of obvious to keep Austin Dillon off the list this week, but Dillon's definitely close. And Kyle Busch has 5 top 10s this year, which is definitely an upside. I would have had him in the top 10 if Bowman did not win yesterday, but because Bowman won, I had to move him to 10th, and Kyle Busch is off the power rankings list once again, because Kyle Busch was good all day long. He was in the top 5 for most of the day, scored a lot of stage points, finished 8th at one of his better racetracks too, so that was definitely a good performance by Kyle Busch, one of his best of the season, but off the power rankings list simply because Bowman won yesterday. Back to the power rankings list, though. Number 7. Number 7, we've got Kyle Larson. Larson has faded so much in this power rankings list. Just 2 weeks ago, he was second, dropped back to fourth last week, and after Martinsville. And he had a good run at Martinsville, but that's because Truex won, and who else moved ahead of him that week? Oh, Blaney. Yeah, I moved Blaney ahead of him as well. So we got Larson back to 7th. He was not good at all yesterday. It was a track, one of the few tracks he's actually won at in his NASCAR career at Richmond, and he was outside the top 20 pretty much all day. I know part of it he got trapped a lap down with that Newman caution in Stage 2, but he was on the verge of going a lap down before that anyway at the end of Stage 1 and barely held on. I just don't see how he struggled as much as he did yesterday. It was very strange. Like, we talk about Chase Elliott struggling. He was at least inside the top 15 all day, and Larson was far from it. Kyle Larson does have 6 top 10s on the year, 4 top 5s. He's got the win, 3 stage wins. But he's back to 6th in the actual regular season standings now, too. And he does move back 3 spots from last week to this week. Again, that poor run at Richmond, and we got a lot of guys that were behind him that were, progressing forward. They're on a little bit better streaks than Larson's on right now in the last couple races, excluding, Martinsville. But even if you throw Martinsville in there, he's only got 1 top 10 in the last 3 races. So he's definitely not as strong in the last 3 races compared to what we have been. But we go to more intermediates after Talladega again. We had that stretch of short tracks, and the Hendrick cars, especially Larson. Larson's probably been the best on the intermediates so far this season, so expect him to maybe contend for wins pretty soon and move back up in our power rankings. But for right now, he is sitting 7th. Coming in at number 6 on the power rankings list, we have Ryan Blaney. Blaney moves down quite a bit as well, moving back also 3 spots. Blaney, I expected him to struggle at Richmond, and he did get 11th, exceeding my expectations slightly. Not completely exceeding them with the top 10, but he was close, and he did score stage points as well. He's 5th in the regular season standings, so putting him 6th at the power rankings list is about even there. He has a win, and he has been better in recent weeks compared to Larson. Larson has not finished in the top 10. Actually, he's finished outside the top 20 in 2 of the last 3 races, versus Blaney has at least finished in the top 11 6 straight races. So a lot more consistency out of Blaney. That's why he's ahead of Larson in the list. And he's ahead of him by 5 points in the regular season standings. Blaney's 5th versus Larson 6th. Larson does have 2 more top 10s and 2 more top 5s. They both have 3 stage wins, 1 race win. Definitely very close, but because Blaney's on a hotter streak than Larson right now, that's why we have Blaney at 6. Coming in at number 5, we have William Byron. Byron moves up 2 spots in the power rankings list. He was 7 last week. He moves up here this week. William Byron is trending upwards. Guys, William Byron is 4th in the point standings right now. Guess how many top 10s he has? 7. Yes, 7 top 10s. You know where that ranks him at top 10s this season? 2nd. William Byron has the 2nd most top 10s this season with 7. 2 top 5s a win and 1 stage win. He's 4th in the regular season standings. By far, this is William Byron's breakout year. He got a win last season at Daytona, but he struggled for most of the year, barely got into the playoffs. He didn't need to win that race to make it in because Johnson got taken out in the big one earlier in that race, but it definitely was a pressure-packed race for him for sure, and he was a quick exit in the playoffs as well. He actually, I thought, did better consistently, at least the year before that, in 2019 when he made it to the round of 12, and he just simply had a lot of points throughout the course of the year. Was consistently at least in the top 10 in points. But yeah, I think putting Byron at 4 is good. He jumps ahead of both Larson and Blaney. Those are the 2 spots he moves up ahead of, and he passed both of them in the regular season points this week as well. He's got 3 more top 10s than Blaney, 1 more top 10 than Larson. He's got just as many top 5s as Blaney, and 2 less top 10s than Larson. But again, just like with Larson and Blaney, Byron's on a hot streak. The only 2 races he has not finished in the top 10 in this year, I believe, is Daytona and the 500 in the season opener. And was it Dirt Bristol he didn't finish in the top 10 too? I think he might have finished top 10 there. What other race did he not finish in the top 10 in? I don't feel like going through all the results of every race, but regardless, he's finished in the top 10 all but 2 races this season. For William Byron, that is solid. What is he, 22 years old, 23? He's still super, super young. The future is definitely looking bright for William Byron. It's looking like he can win a couple more races this season, make that breakout year even better than what it already is. Stewart-Haas as a whole just seems like they are lacking power to get a win, besides Harvick. But even Harvick's struggling, although he's got a bunch of top tens. Yeah, Harvick is struggling comparative to last season. If Harvick didn't win 9 races last season, I think we would consider this just to be an average Harvick season, honestly. But because he set his bar so high winning 9 races last year, it's a little bit of a concern. You figure he hasn't even won a race since Bristol last season. That would have been 7 races to end the year, and then 9 to start this year. So it has been 16 races already since Kevin Harvick's gone to victory lane, believe it or not. Despite having 9 wins last season, it's been 16 races. So comparative to last year, by far, Harvick is struggling. But, I mean, he's still doing better than Keselowski, statistically and in points. So I think there's more cause of concern right now for Keselowski than what there is Harvick, to be quite honest. Driver-wise. Team-wise, maybe Stewart-Haas is definitely more trouble than Penske, but as far as trying to get a win goes, I think Harvick's looking pretty good here. Good question, though. Number 4 on the list. Oh, shoot. Hang on, I messed this. I messed the list up. I'm sorry. I messed the list up. Okay, so here is how the spots move. All right. I forgot to mention Christopher Bell's in the top 10. I'm really sorry for that. For some reason in my notes, I skipped him. And I didn't put the number next to the number and the driver I have on my Google Docs because I did it last week and it almost seemed kind of confusing in my brain when I was trying to read them off. So I didn't do that this week, and it actually costed me because I skipped over Christopher Bell. I had Christopher Bell at 7th on the list. That means I would have had Larson 6, Blaney 5, and Byron 4, if that makes any sense. So I haven't mentioned Christopher Bell. Bell's 7th. He had a great run yesterday. I'll cover him briefly. He's got 5 top 10s in the first 9 races, 2 top 5s that win at the Daytona Road Course earlier this season. He's in the top 10 in regular season standings. The guys he's ahead of, Harvick, Elliott, both without wins, and Bowman, who has a win just like Bell, but Bell is a couple spots ahead of him in points and has one more top 10. So that is why I have Bell 7th. And then again, Larson. I already talked about Larson, Blaney, and Byron. We have Larson at 6, Blaney 5, and William Byron at 4. So Byron actually moves up 3 spots. So sorry about that. Bell had a fantastic race yesterday. Yeah, he did. He finished 4th, and he was in the top 10 all day. Had a great restart there at the very end as well. He was actually in 5th before the final caution, too. So great day by Christopher Bell. R6, welcome to the stream. So my championship 4 right now, we already mentioned William Byron's number 4, I guess, with that typo. Again, sorry for that. Into number 3 is Joey Logano. Logano, sitting at number 3, is the same as last week. He's 3rd in the regular season standings. Great run for Logano yesterday. It looked like he was on his way at least to a top 2 run. He ended up finishing 3rd. Still a good run, though. Top 5. That's his 4th top 5 of the year and 6 top 10s for Logano. That ties him for 2nd most top 5s this year with both Martin Truex Jr. and Kyle Larson. So Logano's definitely one of the championship contenders right now. And he's on, I think, the hottest streak outside of Denny Hamlin. Honestly, I think Logano is, and Truex. Really, the top 3 are, they're really right there. They're all bunched together. Logano's got 2 stage wins, 6 top 10s this year as well, which puts him 3rd. Has him 3rd most for top 10s this year, tied for 3rd most with Truex. And I guess I'll just say it right now. Martin Truex Jr. is at number 2 on the list. So comparing Truex's stats to Logano's, they're very, very equal. Logano's got 1 more stage win than Truex. They both have the same amount of top 5s with 4, same amount of top 10s with 6. And they're very close in the regular season standings. Logano's 3rd and Truex is 2nd, but Truex is only 1 point ahead of Logano. So they're very close. They're really the only difference maker that puts Truex ahead of Logano in my power rankings is that Truex has 2 wins versus Logano's 1. So that's why Truex is number 2. And Denny Hamlin, yeah, I know he hasn't won a race this season. He's still number 1. Guys, he's got the most top 5s and the most top 10s this season and the most stage wins, but he has not been able to get the race win. He's a regular season points leader, which means 15 playoff points at the end of the regular season. Denny Hamlin comes in easily number 1 on the list. If Martin Truex Jr. would have won yesterday, because he did look fast, let's say Hamlin still finished second, but he finished second to Truex, there could have been a debate because Truex could have had 3 wins versus Hamlin 0, despite the fact that Truex would have still had 4 less top 5s than him and 2 less top 10s. It would have been a closer debate, but it's really not that close anymore. Denny Hamlin is kind of clear-cut number 1. It seemed like after Truex won Martinsville, it was like this, and he cut it to this. He kind of cut it in half. Now he doesn't move quite back to where he was before, but he moves like that halfway in between the original cut that he had. Championship 4, Hamlin, Larson, Truex, Logano. That's definitely a good one for sure. I think Larson just being fast on the intermediates right now could definitely put him in that picture. He's very close. So is Blaney right now. They're all very close. But for the moment, again, this changes every week. So, although I have Byron in the top 4 right now, Blaney goes on to win at Talladega. He's done that twice. He's really good there. Let's say Blaney wins at Talladega. He's going to move back into the top 4 ahead of Byron. So, it's definitely, it changes every week for sure. But Denny Hamlin, number 1. So Hamlin's still my championship favorite right now. But my championship 4 is actually the top 4 in points. Actually, the top 6 in points are all in line of how I have them in my power rankings right now. So Hamlin, Truex, Logano, and Byron are my championship 4 currently. Got a couple more minutes. Any last words from you guys in the chat? Our Coke 600 for NASCAR Heat 5 will be coming up next on the channel. Just got to get my PS4 powered. I'll do that right now, I guess, while I'm talking. Get everything powered up so we can get that started as soon as possible. It's going to be a long race, so a lot of hours of streaming, despite maybe not that many streams today. Honestly, Talladega, have zero clue on who to take. Oh yeah, for sure. It's a lottery pick if you're looking at fantasy at least. Let me mute my TV so it's not too loud. There we go. I don't want the audio to pick up on that. But yeah, I'm excited for Talladega. I'll be there next week. Again, it's looking like I'm going to do 2 separate vlogs from what you guys wanted. I think that was the idea, was to do the Xfinity Series vlog one day and then the Cup Series the next. I probably can't get the Cup Series vlog up until Monday or Tuesday after the race. I got to work Tuesday. Hopefully Monday I can get home early enough and keep working on it. And maybe work on it Sunday night after the race to get me to where I don't have to work on it much on Monday. But after the Xfinity race, we'll be going right back to the hotel. And unless those races are on the same day, then it's going to be a little tougher. I still might do them separate, but just be aware on that because it looks like there is rain on Saturday at Talladega, but Sunday's clear right now. So they will get the Cup race in. That's most guaranteed. I just hope they don't run the Xfinity race on Monday. That's gonna stink because it is a track without lights. So they might not run them both on Sunday. I would hope they do run both races on Sunday if it did get rained out. I'm excited to be at the Indy 500 this year. First time. Oh man, I bet you're gonna have a blast. Greatest race in the world. Most prestigious race in the world, I should say. My favorite race personally would be the Daytona 500, but that's because I'm a NASCAR fan. But I do respect the Indy 500, and I do consider it still the most prestigious motorsports event in the world. So yeah, have fun with that. I cannot wait for Talladega. I cannot wait to just be there in person, watch the race. We will be doing the pre-race fantasy NASCAR Fantasy Podcast and our pre-race version of the podcast still this week, but instead of doing it on race day because I will be at the racetrack itself, and I know the Wi-Fi is not going to be good. I'm not going to stand there with the phone trying to remember my lines. So essentially what we're going to do is I leave Friday morning, but I don't work on Thursday. Well, I usually don't work Thursdays. I'm picking up a half day, but I'll be home by 2 o'clock in the afternoon at least, so I could definitely get the pre-race prediction stream out Thursday before I leave Friday morning with ease. It won't even be a hassle. So definitely plan on that on Thursday. No specific start time for it yet, but we will have that on Thursday. I would like to do 5 o'clock because that seems to be our best time to do it. So 5 o'clock as of right now. Can't sleep, can't eat, I'm too late. Pull back the sheets. be a lot of fun. It'll be my second ever trip to Talladega, and I believe it'll be my 14th Cup race. That counts the NASCAR race. You guys said it should count, so that's why I'm counting it. Like I mentioned that in other streams. That's enough rambling. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Oh! Hang on. Wait a minute. There we go. That's all fixed. Wow, music. That was from the net. Sorry, I hope that doesn't get copyrighted. That's can hear you music too loud. I did not mean to put the music on there. That was when I turned NASCAR Heat on. I didn't realize I muted my TV so I can't hear it, but for whatever reason, I'm still getting picked up on OBS, even though I had the TV muted. So, my bad on that one. Yeah, we can't hear you. Oh, okay. I'm sorry for that. It should be good now. Yeah, it's good now. Okay. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you guys in a little bit for our Coke 600 for the NASCAR Heat 5 custom schedule race.